I welcome you all to the 2019 pre-annual general meeting workshop. It is very gratifying to see you all, and I'm indeed very delighted that you came in great numbers, the holiday notwithstanding. And I think we have some very interesting discussions lined up today, and I would really like to urge everyone to participate. We've got a stellar cast of speakers and presenters, so everything should go well. The success of the Institute borders on your support as members and your contribution to the thought leadership process, which underpins how the Institute engages with key stakeholders on matters that affect the accountancy profession and business. I am confident that the discussion themes which will be covered today are topical, very topical, and have great relevance on the day-to-day running of businesses now and going forward. We need to abreast ourselves with the provisions of the much anticipated sales tax bill of 2019, which is a major tax reform in Zambia, a true game changer. It's very topical, still under discussion in various fora, and it's something that's really key. And I'm very delighted that we have the Commissioner of Domestic Taxes here to give a presentation and give a bit more insight into how it will be working. And I'm sure, like me, a number of you still have a number of questions about how it's going to work. In addition, as members, we need to familiarize ourselves with the Employment Code Act of number 3 of 2019, which has strengthened provisions related to the conditions of service for employees and has significant implications for the accountancy profession and business. Distinguished guests, I am delighted that the Secretary and Chief Executive of the Pan-African Federation of Accountants, Mr. Vixon Nyuga, accepted our invitation to make a presentation on ethics and integrity for professional accountants, which are very foundational topics for accountants. It's very key. And ethics is another topical issue. Wherever you go, there's talk about ethics, especially when you put accountants in the spotlight. There's questions of ethical conduct, fraud, this, that, and the other. So that's another great topic which we're going to be discussing today.
As an accountant officer, when an accountant approaches their work, when they tell you we want 3 quotations, as you are presenting them to them, technically, if they are ethical, they must look at those quotations not as factual, but as a possibility that these quotations could have been done by one company under 3 names. That is a critical point of a mind, as professional skepticism. The code of ethics must make every accountant realize that he or she is a defender of all the 6 capitals: natural, man-made, social and relationships, human, intellectual, and financial. Allow me therefore to suggest that when the African Union came up with Agenda 2063, they had provided a context in which we Africans, Zambians included, must exercise our ethical behavior. We need to find our relevance beyond our fees and salaries. We need to find ourselves playing in the larger public good. We must, as we claim to be people who work in the public interest, that is, the citizens of our countries and our continents. Simply put, we must serve the man and the woman in the streets. Allow me, therefore, to make a proposal to all of us that shall we all work together and reduce this contradiction of terms as part of our ethics. Let's stop talking about corruption, fraud, misappropriation. Can we just give a simple name? Theft. Accuse everyone of theft. If a person has done something, don't say that he's corrupt, just say he's a thief through corruption. Let us use the other thing he did as just an explanation, but basically theft. There will be no fraud, no misappropriation, no misapplication, just theft. If we did that, then we reduce the contradiction in society where people don't understand what we are talking about. The code of ethics, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, must inform our collective vision. Africa and Zambia is self-confident in its identity, heritage, culture, values, and as a strong, united, and influential partner in the global stage, making its contribution to peace, human progress, coexistence, and welfare. In short, a different Africa and a different Zambia. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
CFOs, you have fellows that are seated in front of me right now. And then someone can come to me and tell me, convince me that there is no Zambian who should be able to be a CFO in a foreign company because it has invested in Zambia. Does that make sense? It doesn't. So before you employ your CFO who is not Zambian, you must be able to prove to us that amongst you seated in this podium, you cannot do such a function. And of course, I'll come and ask the President, President, there is an application like this one here. You mean amongst your members, they cannot be CFOs? Now, that is also subject to some kind of maybe development agreements that we may agree. But we may maybe allow 4 people. But to have the whole section, the whole account section, the whole finance department led by people that are not Zambian, there is no single Zambian. If they are on the lower end of things, it's not acceptable. So that is why that section is now making sure that a Zambian must be given first preference before you bring an expatriate. Because we know that obviously bringing an expatriate is slightly expensive than having a local employee.
We are sometimes overly optimistic about the benefits of IPSAS. And so there are some fantastic benefits about enhancing accountability and supporting better decision making, making sure that you have a whole of government picture of your balance sheet of the country. And these are all good things, but what most countries that have implemented IPSAS have found is that not all the benefits realized, certainly not in the short term. And so it's really important as a country is to say, what is it that we are trying to achieve with this reform? I am absolutely convinced that if we outsource IPSAS implementation to some consultant that a donor pays for from outside of our countries, that we won't succeed.
The performance of the VAT, which is doing very well starting 2017, and why drop when you've got a tax that is performing. If you look at the slides that I gave around the VAT, overall the VAT has a problem. If you talk to those people that are in refund status, those that are expecting refund from us, they will tell you that they've been in those challenges. Because a good VAT works well when you look at the two sides. If your money is due from the authority to you as a business, it must be given and given on time. The law currently provides that this refund must be paid 30 days. And so if you are not paying, it means it starts affecting the cash flow of those businesses. But what we did in the interim, starting 2017, we appointed withholding tax agents. Of course, some of them were performing very well, others not. Meaning that collecting at source. So once you make a supply, the one you have made a supply to, you hold the money and pays. And so that is what pushed the performance of the VAT. But that did not resolve the issue of the refund on the other side. If you look at the tax system, any tax system has got certain fundamentals. After you make certain adjustment to it, it ceases to be that tax type. A VAT must always have refunds if it's going to be a VAT tax system. The moment you temper with refunds, it ceases to be a VAT. A VAT system must always have zero rating of exports. And that's an internationally established principle. So you cannot tamper with tax system by removing or removing exports or making exports are not zero-rated, then it ceases to be a VAT. You may go into that, but it may just turn out to be a different system. So, but what we are saying is that when we look at the structure of our economy, which has little value addition and many other aspects, we realize that that tax type does not fit into our situation. And therefore, that's why we are moving away from that tax type and to a sales tax. Assuming that in the future, the economy changes and is able to get that value, huge value addition, obviously, consideration can still be made to look at what tax type will be appropriate at that point.
Now, as PwC, we ran a survey of banks and non-bank financial institutions for 2018, and we asked a few questions around IFRS 9, because this is now practically what has happened as you have been implementing IFRS 9. And so 100% of the commercial banks responded, so that's 18 out of 18. And for the microfinance, non-bank financial institutions, there were 24 out of 47. So a fairly representative sample. So these are some of the practical challenges that were encountered. So number one, building the models. I'm sure a number of you have had to engage actuaries, etc. Sadly, even though we are powerful accountants, we have to admit that some things are not particularly within our realm of expertise. And so actuaries have been quite key, especially for financial institutions. Factoring forward-looking information, you have to remember that IFRS 9 is an expected credit loss model. That means you are modeling what you expect to happen. This is not sitting down and saying, okay, what do we actually think? Okay, what happens with inflation? There is an actual process by which you first go back and assess what factors have most affected your impairment. Once you understand that, you make an assessment of what is likely to happen to these factors going into the future, and then you make inferences onto your actual impairment at a particular point in time. It sounds easy, but it is not as easy as described.
Now, what is an authentic dispute resolving or resolution? This is the definition that Brown and Marriott gave in 1999. It's a range of procedures that serve as alternative to litigation through the courts for the resolution of disputes, generally involving the intercession and assistance of neutral and impartial third party. Basically, put it in short, what we are saying is an alternative dispute resolving method is basically a way of resolving our disputes outside of the courts.
Okay, let's get those hands up.
Kids, 57% of them are failing fitness tests. And the fitness test is simply holding a plank for a minute, doing more than 60 push-ups in 1 minute. We started eliminating ourselves. Okay? Yeah?
I think arising from what Mr. Ncube has said, as Zika, I think we've been given a lot of space by the government in terms of being consulted on a lot of things. But I feel maybe there isn't that power to change a few things, like in terms of the sales tax and the VAT.
With regards holding out, which is one of the offences in the Accountants Act, I wanted to find out if your office has been able to prosecute any cases, or if you have had any cases reported, and if